Choosing a tenant in 2019 is very different to 2021. Stay tuned for what we believe is the right type of tenant for 2021. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Morning Minutes, episode 350. Myself, Michael Bergio, Mark Novak. How are we, Mark?
Morning. Good, buddy.
Morning. Good. COVID-proof tenants is going to be very, very important to any professional landlord out there or potential purchaser, residential, but specifically commercial property over the next probably year or two.
It's changed. Hey, if you had an airline pilot, airline hostie, hospitality, you were not worried. And you, as a tenant in 2019, you wouldn't have thought twice about it. Now, 2021, you think, is that in my best interest as a landlord? Do I take out landlord insurance and stuff like that? It's changed. Hey.
100%. Cafes were probably morning and mail. Cafes would have been one of the hottest investments for the last 5 years, and at the moment people are staying away from them like the plague. The whole dynamic and purchasing dynamic for tenants has totally shifted from one way to another, and this show is about giving you basically the inside scoop and what we're seeing on the front lines, dealing directly with purchasers over the last 9 months of what they like and what they don't like. So if you're looking to buy, we can steer you in the right direction. And if you're looking at picking a tenant, you may actually choose a lower rent for a type of tenant compared to another tenant. And that's what today's about.
Industry-based, yeah. And you know what, the commercial tenants, I like, it's very sore and very hard to admit, but landlords have been given a really, really hard time in the commercial sector, particularly the retail sector. Even companies like Westfields, big shopping centres and places like that, CBD shopping precincts with tenants, it's really just completely changed the whole tenant selection process with the way you're dealing with it these days. So I think and I think a lot of landlords are thinking, is it going to come back? Like in your section, Michael, with commercial, a lot of landlords are thinking now, far out, am I, do I sell this property? Is it doomed? Or is it just, are we going to sort of come out of COVID and it's all going to go back to normal with my investment property? So it's very, very interesting, huh?
It is. And just to give people an example of the value of a tenant for commercial property, because if you haven't bought commercial before and you've got a lot of experience in residential, you really don't think of a tenant there adds much value. You're looking at an apartment, you go, is it vacant or tenant? And you're like, I don't really care. Like, it doesn't really go into the thought pattern or the buying process. But to give you an example for commercial property, we've got one in Howard Avenue. The owners were about to sell it for $730,000. Vacant. At the 18th hour, I've come in with a great tenant. We're now going to be selling that property for $900,000 to $1 million. The property hasn't changed, the market hasn't changed, but that's the difference between a vacant property and a tenanted property, nearly a 30% upshot regardless of anything else. So it's huge, the tenant. But there can be a big difference between, is it $1 million depending on the industry of the tenant, or is it no extra or only a little bit extra? And a lot of those factors coming into 2021 is that tenant lockdown proof? If we do have a lockdown, can they still
that
operate?
One was a medical. That was a medical tenant as well, which just changed it as well, wasn't it?
In aged care, but sort of related to medical. But it's more, can they stay open? Will they be asking for rent relief? Because if you compare an office-based tenant compared to a cafe, the end of the day, it doesn't matter if the lease is showing a 10% return. If no rent's being paid, you have a 0% return. And that's a lot of feedback I'm getting from buyers. I'm calling them saying, I've got this great cafe for sale, 7% return. They go, that's great. But if they're locked down, it's a 0% return. So I'm more looking for a medical base, a professional base. It's just the reality at the moment. So because if you look at it, if you're a cafe operator, you can't pay rent if you have no income. You may be able to do it for a couple of days or a couple of weeks, but it's not sustainable. And what we've seen is lockdowns can be from 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 8 weeks, and months. So buyers are going, can they still operate? Will I have a problem? And if the answer is no, they're completely sustainable with external clients or anything, or they can keep trading like a medical practice. Buyers are very, very keen to look at it, and they're actually getting phenomenal prices and selling very, very quickly. So the whole point of today is knowing what those industries are and how to look for it and be aware.
You can be a landlord and have a wonderful business, and you can have an investment property, or two or three. But what's changed these days is you used to be relatively bulletproof, because you may have a tenant go bad, but you haven't had an industry go bad. So over the last 20, 30, 40 years, landlords have had tenants go bad. Boo-hoo, they get over it, they replace the tenant, and off they go again. But this is really serious, because as a landlord, you've got this you've got a cracker of a big business that you work in that has not been affected by COVID, but then you're vulnerable just because a tenant you selected 5 or 10 years ago in a particular industry, or you could imagine if you had a precinct like full of stuff that's been, like, you may have 2 or 3 rentals that's full of stuff that's an industry that's been affected. You're stuffed just because of that tenant selection process. So very, very different to anything before. We're now seeing this more so in commercial. How are we seeing it in residential?
A lot of residential is when they've relied on tourism, students, or immigration pockets, like around universities. They're struggling.
Big point. Because that's really interesting, because that student accommodation started eroding those areas, hollowing those areas out for landlords. They used to be quite bit of a cash cow for landlords. They were lucrative, and because our landlords are going, I'm really smart, I buy where there's students, and I pack the student in and I get a huge rent. That started getting hollowed out when these massive operators doing student accommodation came in. That was like blow number one. And then blow number two is some of these universities, particularly the UTS, Sydney Uni, and places like that, New South Wales, that they've had that sort of Asian market, they've had that Indian market, that overseas market of students coming to study. They need to rent somewhere. Guess what? They've all gone home. So yeah, that's a big, big point, mate. That's a big, and it's not an industry. It's like a sector, isn't it?
It is, but it is also. This also brings a lot of opportunity as well. And when a market and a sector is sort of struggling, not because there's no demand for it, not because the market has shifted completely, it's basically because it's been shut down, then there's light at the end of the tunnel. But you don't know if it's in 3 months, 6 months, or 6 years. So there are a lot of people out there looking to buy these assets, taking on the short-term pain for the long-term growth, because there will be people who have bought these assets who won't be able to hold the property because they don't have a tenant. So there's always opportunity where things aren't going well. But depending on your purchasing profile, for example, if you're buying it all cash, then you're a little bit, you can have no tenant. You can have that short-term pain. But if you're leveraging something with a high mortgage and you're very reliant on the expected cash return, the rental income, then you may be looking for a different area that may not be that may not be punished by what's happening at the moment. So there's always wins and losses, and when there's a bit of a downward turn in a market, there's always people looking to capitalize on that. But you just got to be honest with yourself on your own situation.
And you know what? It may be, and this is counterintuitive. We are talking about tenants, we are talking about investors, but you may, as an owner occupier, decide to go into that market because there's now less competition. I'll say it
Yeah,
again. As an owner occupier, you may decide to move closer to a university now because people are dumping university as investments. So you're actually potentially buying better than you've ever bought before while the market's low.
100%. Well, is there anything else you want to add on to that? I think it's a wrap. That sort of covers that.
Mate, that's it. I just think like what a cool opportunity at the moment for people to get into, as an owner occupier, in that sort of cafe business, or look, if rents have been eroded, if rents have been depleted in an area, whether it's commercial due to COVID, whether it's commercial or whether it's residential, it may be a good time as an owner operator to go in there. It may be as an owner occupier to go in there, because everyone's thinking I've got to rent it. You're going in there saying, no, that's cool. I'm gonna occupy it, live in it, have my business in it anyway. Doesn't matter. Have a think about that.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone. We'll be back to Monday morning. Cheers.
Thanks, guys. Cheers. Bye.